Welcome back. This is Mystic. You can call me Angel. I am so excited to be here with you again for my 150 script challenge. As always, I am excited to be here with you today. I'm driving into these scripts in this challenge, not just for entertainment, though I do read scripts for entertainment, but also to grow my skills as a writer, to grow with you. And as creatives, I always like to say that you're never at an end of your journey of growth and development. There's always room to build and refine. So I do challenge myself by reading scripts from time to time. But for some crazy reason, I decided to take it to the next level and do a 150 script challenge here with you. So before we begin, just a little housekeeping as always. I love this community. I love everybody that comes here and shares the time with me. I appreciate every side of the conversation that we have with each other. So please, if you haven't already, I'd appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, just to support the work that I do. And please feel free to leave a comment. If you do leave a comment, remember that this is a safe place for creatives, for writers. So I do welcome feedback. I welcome debate. I welcome different perspectives. But I'd like us to keep in mind that I would like us to stay respectful and kind to each other, give each other grace. We're going to have different opinions. Again, I'm not reviewing the film. I'm reading the script and I'm doing my own analysis of what I'm getting out of the script. So you may not agree with it. You may see it a different way, and that's okay. That's actually what makes it beautiful, is that we have different opinions and different feelings, but there's no reason to argue. If you want to do this with me, read with me, I will link a resource for you in the description where you can go find scripts and pull them down yourself. If you haven't seen the film that I'm going to be reviewing and you would like to not get any spoilers, I suggest that you stop and come back to this later. And again, I am analyzing scripts. I am not reviewing films. So there will be things that might be different. So please don't come at me. I always say that. You may remember the film and say, it didn't happen like that, or that scene wasn't in there, or that wasn't that person's name. Things change often when you go from script to film. So that's all of the little housekeeping and all those little things. So let's get right to it. Let's jump into today's script. So today we're jumping into script number 14, and the script is Alienation. This is a film that was released in 1988. It was written by Rockne S. with a rewrite by James Cameron. It is a sci-fi buddy cop crime drama. It was a fun film to watch. The script fuses sci-fi with cop drama in a kind of a language of what if the world had aliens that crash landed and have to integrate into human society. And then now we're telling story of almost like an immigrant story. It deals with all kinds of interesting subjects that take social commentary and turn it into kind of this really interesting filter of alien contact. I always talk about why I choose specific scripts I read. So why I chose Alienation, because it does test that high concept sci-fi. It's sci-fi at the core, but it's also grounded in familiar drama topics and tropes that we're used to with the buddy cop and all that kind of stuff, family drama. And it raises those sharp questions of racism and prejudice, and then the partnership being forced to solve a problem for people that come from different types of society. So it really puts some hard discussion in our face in this really interesting way. So spoiler alert, through this whole thing, as I said, we're analyzing the script. Just a quick summary of the story setup. A massive slave ship crash lands on Earth, and the newcomers are engineered beings designed for labor, and they are integrated into society. Our protagonist, the veteran detective Matt Sykes, is bitter after his partner is murdered by one of these newcomers. He gets paired with George Jetson, who's a newcomer detective. So A couple of things about this. In the film, it's San Francisco, which I loved it. I am from San Francisco, so I was always kind of tickled with that. In the screenplay, it is George Jetson. Funny thing about that is they all have these really real names, weird names. They just kind of started giving up on giving them names, started throwing weird names at them when they brought into the immigrant center. So he's the first immigrant promoted to detective, and it's looked at in this story. They present it like it's like some sort of a diversity hiring, which is, considering this is back in 1988, that was very interesting to me. Through working together, they investigate a string of brutal killings tied to the underworld of the alien population. They uncover a conspiracy that reaches into politics and corporate power, and it's really very juicy and full of subterfuge, which is, Angel loves that stuff. So my heart of the story analysis, going through what I see as the act structure, you have your opening, and it opens with the visual of how it all happened, which was really interesting. They laid it out pretty clear. We have the news footage of the ship's arrival. It's gritty, it's weird, and you're looking at it through the filter of the people that are experiencing, whether it's on the news, people being interviewed, how society is adjusting to these newcomers that are that are brought to the planet. And then we meet Detective Matt Sykes, who's with his longtime partner. They come upon a crime with some violent alien criminals. There's a shootout, and his partner is eliminated. The inciting incident here, at the investigation of the shooting of his partner, he runs into a newcomer uniformed officer. Some things are said that pique Sykes' curiosity around, is this murder connected to some other things that are being investigated? Sykes is obsessed with solving his partner's murder, which is kind of a typical cop drama, right? He's got to find out who killed my buddy. So when George Jetson is brought in and announced to the other officers, the other detectives, that he is this newcomer that's being promoted, there's this program the city's trying to breach and create great relationships with the newcomers and do all this wonderful stuff, all the other detectives and officers are really upset by it. Like, we don't want that. We don't need that. I'm going to the union. I'm going to complain. Sykes sees it as an opportunity to dig in and solve the crime of his partner's death by partnering with a newcomer so that he can dig into the newcomer culture. So he volunteers to be partner to this very first alien detective in the LAPD. So that was really interesting. The way they pulled together, it was much better and much more detailed the way they pulled it together in the script, though they did an awesome job in the film. The film was awesome, but boy, did they catch the emotion on this. I really like the way they did this particular scene in the script. First plot point, there's Warren Hubley, or Hubley, however you pronounce it, who's a murdered newcomer businessman. They are trying to get their case solved, and they run into this other one. So the case is tied to this other newcomer who's a pretty important business person, and it starts to hint that there's something greater going on here. Midpoint, the two discover connections to more powerful newcomers, and there's specifically a newcomer entrepreneur named William Harcourt, who's hiding a dark secret, and Angel loves dark secrets. The next plot point I see was when there's a collision here in morality. Sykes is relentless pursuing what he's trying to get to. By all means necessary, he wants to find the killer of his partner, and he's willing to bend rules. He's willing to do what he needs to do. He's old school detective, where George Jetson is all about integrity. And when they bump into this underworld, it starts to get really sticky. And then they find the stimulant. There's this newcomer stimulant that's tied to the murder, and that seems to be controlling the underbelly. It's so interesting. And I've got some more notes and we'll talk about it, but it's so interesting. You could literally take this story and remove the alien element and just create a cop drama. with an underboss, a young detective and an older detective, veterans trying to solve the crime, a drug lord is involved. Is this really just really good storytelling? I was actually very surprised by this script. I really enjoyed it. The climax, Sykes and Jetson confront, it's really hard reading that this is George Jetson, I'm sorry. Sykes and Jetson confront Harcourt and his enforcers, risking everything to stop the spread of this drug and bring justice. This drug is just bad news for the newcomers. We get the resolution. Sykes is no longer bitter and bigoted. He comes around to support and respect Jetson as his partner and equal. He even invites us to his daughter's wedding. So that's the layout of the main story. Then we have our protagonist arc. Sykes is our protagonist. What he wants is revenge for his partner's death and to expose alien criminals. He starts this story off with not supporting the aliens. He partnered with Jetson because he wanted to be able to have access to this alien underworld. He believed that it was all about bad news having these aliens around, and he wanted to prove that the aliens were responsible. Even though, there was one bad or two bad aliens that were in it, doesn't mean that they're all bad. It was Jetson's point, but that was not Sykes' point. His obstacles were his own prejudice. His own prejudice that filtered and blocked his vision and his instinct, because he has good instinct. He's a detective. He didn't become a detective for nothing. But also the wall of silence. As with any community of people that are the close, and you're the alien coming into the community, which is what Sykes was. He's the alien coming into their community. So there's a wall of silence. How often do we hear about this when, the government comes into a community to do whatever they're going to do, and that community shuts down? Regardless, it's just the same thing we see in any story that's like this, which was really, well done. And then, of course, the power of the boss man, Harcourt. He's just a very, very powerful individual, and he couldn't get past it. It reminded me of, it reminded me of Mr. Tibbs in The Heat of the Night. It really did. The transformation is when Sykes learns to trust and respect Jetson, moving from anger and hate to partnership and loyalty. So they did finally bring that around full court. I feel like the heartbeat connection for Sykes here is the real change in how prejudice breaks down, how it is about how much do you hate when lives are at stake. Is your need to be prejudiced more important to saving lives? And that's the heartbeat, because when it came down to it, Sykes did make that transformation. Now the antagonist here is William Harcourt. He is a newcomer industrialist. He's using the drugs and he's using corruption. So he's a typical drug kingpin. His conflict, there's the integration of the newcomers into society. They were a low run on the totem pole, on the ladder group of people. They were used to being exploited. They were slaves on a slave ship. So when they were released and they were brought, they were easy to exploit. And Harcourt represented a group of the aliens that knew this. And so he took advantage of that. He came into our world, took advantage of the aliens, and then used our people to help take advantage of them. It was very controlled. It was really interesting. And newcomers could not be accepted. They must be controlled. That is the message. And the mirror, Harcourt mirrors the racism, not just of Sykes' racism, but the racism of society. And he's taking advantage of it against his own people. Intense. So then I'm always looking to how I can apply the hero's journey to this specific story. And when I look at this, it's actually pretty easy. When you look at Sykes, the call to adventure for Sykes is when his partner is eliminated and he decides he wants to go and solve his murder. It's not a classic case of somebody comes to him and says, hey, accept this call to adventure, and then he refuses. He doesn't actually refuse the call to adventure. He actually refuses to accept his partner, because as a partner, he can help him solve it. He more or less is like, you're my partner now, help me solve it, versus you're my partner, let's build a a trusting relationship and help each other so we can solve this. So it's not about refusal, but his prejudice does make him resist Jetson. And because he resists him, it takes a little longer. They have to go through the drama of wrestling through to get to a good relationship in this. And his mentor, I think in this sense, his mentor is Jetson, because it's in their growth together, in their coming together, and their connection that he begins to start to listen. At the beginning, he doesn't listen. And there are times when Jetson has to tell him, like there's a funny thing in the script where Sykes' name means something. They do a couple of scenes where they speak the language of the newcomers, and there's lots of S's and K's and how they pronounce their names, their words. And so when Sykes says his name, Jetson teases him because it means, craphead with the S. And so he tells him this when they first get together. So when they start going into the den of newcomers, they begin to respond to that being his name. And Sykes has to adjust to that because that's what his name means. It means craphead. And so he learns that from Jetson, and he has to adjust to it. And that's just one of the many scenes that they have written in the script to slowly show them gaining trust with each other. So it's really great. Now, trials, there's lots of trials, shootouts and investigations, clashing with the alien culture. He's definitely tested through this. But the transformation, he finds honor and loyalty in Jetson. He sees Jetson for who he is, which is a really great person to be a detective. And he only saw that because he stopped seeing him through the filter of he was this alien that he didn't like just because he was an alien. And then the return, together they take this guy down. They take him down. They can't take him down individually. They work together and bring him down and then become true partners. So that's what I got from that. My assessment of the primary themes, I believe the primary themes in this is prejudice, absolute racial prejudice, and then integration. How do we get along? How do we connect? How do we engage with each other and work together? Partnerships, even though we're different. And then corruption versus justice. The key emotional beats that I found, you have to excuse me, I have so many notes on this. I tell myself I don't do more than 20 minutes and I'm almost done with my 20 minutes. The key emotional beats, the death of his partner, Tuggles is the partner's name. Partner being eliminated, in the shootout was raw. There was so much detail in the writing when they wrote the scene out. And I say they because there was the original writer and then the rewrite by James Cameron. So I don't really know which elements, who put what in which elements, because I only have this copy. I didn't have an earlier version. But there was a lot of detail in the scene written out showing the desperate fight, the two of them together, Tuggle isolated, trying to survive, crawling around in the car. It was a scene that pulled you in, that you cared. So when Tuggles was eliminated, it hurt emotionally. And then Sykes volunteering to partner with Jetson, I would say it was reluctant, but it wasn't that it was a reluctant partnering. He didn't want to do it, but he did it because he knew he had to. He was determined to find the answers, and he figured the only way to do it would be to take this alien and do it with him. And then Jetson's quiet dignity, he was ridiculed, he was bullied, it was not easy for him to be in a situation. And again, I can relate to it, and I think anybody that's ever had to face this kind of thing can relate to it. And I enjoyed this movie. I was very young when this movie came out, and so I remember it being kind of like that, but not. I mean, it had James Caan and some really great actors in it, and it's just well done. But in reading it and being who I am today, I'm Gen X, so being who I am today, I'm like, I get this, and I felt it. The prejudice, the having to work with people that you knew just don't like you. It was heavy. It was really heavy, and the way that they placed Harcourt up as just charming, wonderful businessman that's truly corrupt and disgusting. Wow. Oh, wow. And then at the end, when Sykes called Jetson his partner, he's like, you're my partner. That was really, really great. When I talk about the symbolism, one thing that always has stood out for me with this story is how sour milk is their alcohol. The thing that is wholesome in our society, but then it goes sour, and we would normally throw it out, and for them it's alcohol. It really symbolizes the differences. The names are fun to me. They're given these human names, but they reflect humor and ridicule. They give them these ridiculous names like George Jetson and you know, all these things that would be ridiculed and be made fun of. And then the guns, how we need big guns. I was taken aback like that. The guns that they were given to fight the aliens were so powerful that some of the officers struggled with wielding them or even firing them because of the punchback, because they needed such powerful weapons to go against the aliens because they were so powerful. And they're so powerful, but they are conditioned to be docile and passive because they're slaves. They're built for labor. At its heart, you know, alienation's about partnership, how trust and respect can overcome even prejudice, deep down ingrained prejudice when the stakes are survival. I love that. The emotional climax, you know, when Sykes' rage finds healing in that moment with Jetson at the end, when they take down Harcourt in victory, it's really great. That moment is beautiful. And then at the end, when he takes him to his daughter's wedding, I love that. My key craft lessons as a writer, you know, fusing genres. You know, I'm a horror sci-fi girl. I'm used to putting sci-fi and horror together. This buddy cop sci-fi mix was awesome. It never occurred to me to do this, and I think that there's room to explore this kind of thing. You know, things that you never think of, jumble it up, and as long as it's done well, and this was done well. And when you're doing your world building as a writer, making sure that you apply intelligence in the way so that you can use imagery and allegories and stories to represent things that we look at today without being preachy. It nailed racism and societal differences without being preachy. You could play this film today and we wouldn't get preachy. We wouldn't get quote unquote woke. We would get a good story. Make sure that the character arcs drive the story. Sykes' prejudice breaking through his resolution at the end and letting that go, that right there is the story arc that drives from the start to finish of this story. And then, you know, give your villains character, make them real, make them something you can chew on. This bad guy Harcourt was real, and he was more than scary. He was like a mobster, and I really liked that. And my personal reflection on this script, again, as a writer, I said it before, it reminds me that you can do speculative work. It's not just about aliens. It's about us. They took this piece and they created an essay studying human character and human nature, different groups of people trying to get along in society, living side by side, not quite understanding each other, maybe not quite liking each other. They did all of that in the language and the form of this sci-fi movie. And they reflected our society so well that you missed it while you were looking at it. And then you look at it later, like, oh, wow, that's intense. It's a way to get us to talk about something in a safe way without having to talk about it, about what's really happening, so that we don't get mad at each other and argue. So I loved it. By the end of the script, it's a message of respect, care and respect. And I love that. So at its heart, again, it's about prejudice giving way to partnership. It asks, when everything is at stake and you have to make a choice between life or death, can we still choose trust? Or will we just look at each other in disdain? I want you to think about that. It's hard to end this one. It was heavy. I promised that I wouldn't do really heavy stuff. I was trying to do some sci-fi horror because it's Halloween. But I can't help it. This one was really good. And I went over and I apologize, but I could do this. I could talk about this for another hour. So we're gonna say good day. And I thank you again. I hope that you enjoyed this. I enjoy reading and talking about it. Again, please subscribe if you don't mind. And I hope you like this video. Add any comments that you have. Let's have a discussion about it if you want to. I will put again where you can go to pull scripts down and read them. I invite you to read this. It is a really great script. I enjoy reading scripts that every once in a while I pull one up that is just hot dog, really good script. This one was one of them. So great job on writing a great script. And I thank you again. And I guess I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.